Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and today we are reacting to a TikTok. This video got a ton of engagement, so I want to react to it, and then we will reconvene, and I will tell you what I think. And just before we get started, the text on the screen said, "Girls, delete your dating apps after watching this." Now, I've done a good amount of videos on dating apps. I've interviewed women about dating apps. I've had them scroll through. So let's see what she says and why women should delete their dating apps, and we'll talk about it.
If what I'm about to share with you does not convince you to delete all of your dating apps, I am not sure what will, especially if you're a woman. So I was having a conversation the other day with one of my very close straight male friends who is single, and we were talking about dating and dating apps. And I was saying, I don't have any dating apps. I don't have the desire to be on any dating apps. I don't have the intention to go on any dating apps. And at this point in my life, at this stage in my life, if God wants me to meet a man, it will happen organically out in the wild. Case closed. I never want to be on any dating apps ever at all. And he said, "Good, that's healthy. You shouldn't be on any dating apps." You know why? Because dating apps are like cocoa melon for straight adult men. That's exactly what he said. My friend told me that he deleted all of his apps recently because he realized when he was on Hinge or Tinder or Bumble just swiping away, he was like an iPad kid. He said to me that the average male who's like average looking, has a good job, late 20s, early 30s, who's still single, not that there's anything wrong with that, is going on apps like Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, and matching with like 30 to 50 girls per day, swiping on each and every one of them.
I have to just pause it here for a second. I'm gonna let it play after this, but I wanna make a mental note to revisit this because that is so untrue. No hate to this girl. I really think most women don't know what it's like to be a man on a dating app, as I wouldn't if I hadn't talked to so many of you about it. 30 matches a day. Okay.
Not even seeing if they're like compatible, just swiping based on, are they, attractive enough for me to hook up with, for me to go on a date with, for me to have a drink with. And there's like no care, intention, or thought going into that. My friend also said to me that any man that you meet on a dating app, you have a way higher chance of getting ghosted by him. And I completely agree with that. And he said that, if he clicks with a girl over like message, he gets her number, deems her worthy enough to take out on an actual date, he builds up a fantasy of her in his head, this idea of her. And then he goes in the actual date, realizes she's a human, and, he can't separate the fantasy from reality. And he has trouble compartmentalizing that. And he winds up ghosting because he doesn't know how to deal with it.
Honestly, this sounds like a guy with some character flaws. I don't know if dating apps are necessarily the problem in this situation. If I was talking to a guy friend and he was telling me these things, I would probably tell him, you have an issue here. Anyway.
He said to me that 99% of the time, if you get ghosted by a guy you met on a dating app, it's because of what I just said. And the fact that he can just go back on the app and there's so many other options and he can just continue the cycle. Listen, I don't know about y'all, but like the thought of that actually frightens me. I do not agree with that methodology whatsoever, by the way. I'm just simply relaying this message of what he told me. And yeah, I know that there are exceptions to the rules, like people have met their spouses on dating apps, but those are the exceptions. The level of convenience that's embedded into our culture is actually so unhealthy for both the male and the female brain.
This video is interesting for a few reasons. Some of what she says is totally accurate in my opinion, but I also think that there's some misinformation in here on what the average dating app experience is like for the majority of men. So let's break this down. As I mentioned, I don't think that women fully understand how different dating apps are for men versus women. I think men and women have vastly different experiences on dating apps, from something as simple as, men have to pay a lot of money to use dating apps, and most women don't have to pay a dime. Like, they are designed for men to pay. They're designed to be used differently by men and women because of the way that we date, right? The differences between men and women. So I want to talk about the reality of dating apps for most men. Let's start by saying what we're all probably thinking here. Most men are not getting 30 to 50 matches a day. That is crazy, not anywhere even close. Now, this is what the dating app experience is like for most women, but not most men. I would say there's a very tiny percent of men who have that dating app experience. Now, as I mentioned, the apps are designed so that men have to pay and women generally don't. Men are shelling out all this money and hardly getting any matches, even with paying for these premiums that are on the apps. So just that fact right there might make them swipe right more often to hopefully get a better result because they're paying for it. And let's be honest about what most men and women are doing when they get on dating apps. They're looking at the pictures. That's practically all you have to go off of, and maybe a tiny bio, some silly little prompts. It's not really possible to vet for compatibility at a glance. You have to get to know someone to see if you're compatible. It's really no different than seeing someone you find attractive in person and just going up to them based on the fact that you found them attractive. You know nothing else about them at that point besides the fact that you're physically attracted to them, right? So the same thing is true when you're swiping through an app and all you're seeing is their pictures. You're seeing the photo, you're either physically attracted to them or not, and whether you swipe right or left is probably based on that alone. But all that to say, my point is that most men are not having that experience on a dating app. They're not getting that many matches, and that's why they are swiping right more often. And does that come from a place of maybe desperation? Sure, because they're not getting matches. They're being less picky because they're like, well, I'm not getting any matches. Maybe I need to be less picky and just swipe right on more people. Or I'm sure there are men out there who are just dirty dogs and just want to swipe right on everybody and don't care what you look like, don't care what you're into. Maybe they just want to hook up. Do I agree with that? No, I think that's incredibly unhealthy. But I digress. Now, she mentioned a higher chance of ghosting on dating apps, and that I completely agree with. Because you haven't met this person in real life, there's no real rapport sort of built with them. There's no real sense of respect or feeling an obligation to, tell this person that you're just not interested because you haven't met them in real life. There are some men and women out there who will meet in person and still ghost you. Like they won't even say, hey, I had a really nice time, but I'm not interested. They will just straight up ghost you regardless of if you've met in real life or not. So that doesn't even apply to everyone. There are people out there that just can't face the reality of having a difficult conversation or having the respect for someone to just say, hey, it was really great to meet you. I'm not interested. I don't think that's necessarily a strictly dating app thing. I think that's just a character flaw, to be honest. And I think the guys who are serial ghosters probably are the ones who have a lot of options in women and operate in a grass is greener type of way, or who just have negative behavioral or relationship patterns that dating apps certainly are not the remedy for. Emotionally avoidant, struggle with commitment, the list goes on. And a lot of women will ghost as well. I don't think this is something that is strictly just a man thing. The average woman on a dating app versus the average man on a dating app has way more options, gets way more matches. And one of the reasons for this is simply just because of the ratio between men and women on dating apps. On Tinder, about 75% of Tinder users are male, 25% are female. Bumble, as of July 2024, 37.6% of Bumble users are female, which is a ratio of about 3 men to 1 woman. Now, this is interesting. Coffee Meets Bagel, this app has a 60-40 ratio of women to men, making it one of the few dating apps with more women users than men. If you're a man, perhaps try Coffee Meets Bagel. If you're a woman, maybe not, because those men probably have more options than women because there's more women on the app. Also, maybe you meet up for a date in real life and the person looks nothing like their profile. When I was on dating apps to find women to bring onto my channel, the amount of women I saw who heavily edited their photos or were using filters was actually the majority. It wasn't rare or something I wasn't seeing often. I would say it was probably 75% of the profiles. And I don't say that to be mean or malicious in any sort of way. It's just a fact, right? So if you're matching with someone on a dating app and you think they look a certain way and then you meet them in real life and they look nothing like that, well, that could be a reason for ghosting as well. And I would say the same thing about a man, right? If he says on his profile that he's 6'3" and you meet him in person and he's 5'5", well, he's a liar, number one. And number two, he's not what you thought he was. Stop lying on your dating profiles. The next thing I want to talk about is that people are craving organic connections. I've seen a lot of discussions about this online lately. People are longing for these in real life organic connections that dating apps have tried to replace. We are living behind screens. We are more isolated and lonely than ever before. And men and women have dating app fatigue. And although the struggles of men and women on dating apps are often very different, I've done videos about this, I've mentioned many things throughout this video, I can see why it's tough for everyone involved, right? We're tired of this, we're fatigued. But then you have women getting online saying they don't want to be approached, or men are seeing videos of women humiliating men who approach them. So I can also see why they might be hesitant to approach women. I think most men out there don't want to contribute to making women feel uncomfortable, so they end up just staying in their lane and leaving women alone, which might lead those men to only go on dating apps where they know that women are, okay with being messaged, versus in person when you don't necessarily know if a woman is okay with being approached. It's kind of just like a roll of the dice. She was absolutely spot on with her point about convenience. I do think there are negatives of dating apps, and people scroll through as if the people that they're looking at are not real people, and it's sort of like become gamified, right? And the reality is that when you turn people's loneliness into a revenue stream, it's pretty safe to say that people are going to feel burned, and rightfully so. Dating apps are a double-edged sword. On one end, you have a way to meet people that you might have never met before. And on the other end, you have a surface-level approach to dating that can make finding a meaningful connection feel pretty difficult. Some of you may know, some of you may not, that I met my husband on a dating app in 2018. I feel like dating apps felt a little bit different back then, but the amount of people who still meet their significant others on dating apps is pretty substantial. I'll show a little chart here so you can see the breakdown, but it's the majority of people who meet their significant others on dating apps. So I think if we want to get away from the dating apps, we have to commit to putting ourselves out there in real life, not falling into the trap of isolation and staying behind a screen or staying inside. Maybe be a little bit more kind to people who approach us, even if we're not interested. We don't have to be mean or nasty or try to humiliate people online. Now, do I think that is the majority? No, I think that's a small minority who's getting online and their voices are the loudest, and it makes it seem like it's a bigger issue than it actually is. I don't think most women would try to humiliate you if you approach them in real life. But if we want to move away from the dating apps and start focusing on organic and real life connections, there's some work that needs to be done from both men and women on that front. I think we both have ways that we could contribute and make things a little bit better and easier, and just make the dating process a little bit better for everyone involved. I've done many videos about dating apps. If you look up Courtney Ryan dating apps, you will see all of them pop up. So if you need a little bit of help on that front, definitely be sure to go check out some of the other videos that I've made. So to wrap this video up, good for this girl for not being on dating apps. Again, I think the experience she's sharing is her own experience, and then also the friend that she's talking to. Maybe the friend she's talking to is a hottie who gets a ton of matches, and he has a dating experience that is vastly different from the majority of more average men, and that's why her perception is a little bit skewed. Again, she said some things that I agreed with, some things that I didn't, but regardless, I think it's always insightful to hear other people's experiences. I would love to hear yours down below in the comments. What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? Would just love for you to share some of your words of wisdom and your experience with some other guys down below. And I have to say, I met my husband on a dating app. I don't know that I would have met my husband if it wasn't for the dating app, because we weren't necessarily super close to each other in proximity. So I'm obviously so thankful that I was on the dating app and that I met my husband that way. But if I were single now in 2024 as a 28-year-old woman, I don't know that I would be on a dating app. I think I would much prefer to meet someone in real life. But also, my current lifestyle is not really conducive to meeting people in real life. Really, all I do is run errands and go to the gym. I spend a lot of time at home, but that's also because I'm married. So maybe my lifestyle would look a little bit different if I was single. I really don't know. I was never into going out. Never would have wanted to meet a guy at a bar or club. Never would have, because I was never there. But anyways, now we're just talking hypotheticals. We'd love to hear from you guys down below in the comments. If you like this video or found it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to be in the loop for when I release new content. If you haven't already, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Courtney Christine Ryan. I love connecting with all of you guys over on there as well. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.